Nope, just talk.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? It is 6:02, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. We'll do a roll call. Donna? Stephanie?
Here.
Michelle?
Here.
Margot?
Here. And then Chris is not here.
And Chris is not here.
Yeah.
Not here. All right. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 2.1, which is the superintendent's proposed budget. I'll hand it over to Dan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present the proposed budget for the next fiscal year. I've been in the district now about 13 months, and it's been a real pleasure to get to better know everyone and to better get to know the needs of the district. Just to start off with some factual information, each year the state of Connecticut requires boards of education to file certain data with them on what is known as the October 1 report. Our student enrollment as of October 1st this year was 2,161 students. We had 238 certified staff members and 181.75 non-certified staff members. Our district goal remains the same. Our mission is to create innovative thinkers for a dynamic world. The importance of looking at our mission on a night like tonight is to ensure that our budgetary requests continue to align with our mission and that we're truly mission driven. And I believe that it remains our goal to create innovative thinkers for a dynamic world. In terms of budgetary decision making, first and foremost, we look at our legal and statutory obligations. What are the things that we have to do? Next, it's important to look at doing what is right and best for kids. Our students only get one chance to do all of this. They have 13 years of public education, and they can't afford a lost year. I think we all can look back at that COVID period of time and wish that some things were different, because those were lost years for kids, so we want to always do what is right and best. And then what are our local priorities? What are the things that are important here in Colchester in addition to those legal obligations and doing what is right and best for kids? When I came into the district, you know that I took the time to speak with students, staff, families, a variety of different groups to identify the needs of the district. In turn, I asked for volunteers from a cross-section of our school community to form a series of pride and purpose committees. One committee is to look at the trust, image, and perception. Another is to look at student life. One is to look at the professional culture. One is to explore the possibility of a magnet school at Bacon Academy. And one is to look at the facility needs of the district. Each of those committees is alive and well, doing really important work. The board has heard from a couple of them already, and we'll hear from others in the coming weeks. Last year, I think we all know, was a difficult budget year. It started in late January, early February, and actually spanned more days than the length of the school year. And from start to finish, I believe we had 183 days of budget versus 180 days of school. With that said, I could not be more grateful for the support of the community through the budget process last year. And we came to the community and we said, we need a market adjustment. And one of the questions we had during the budget process last year was, is this really a market adjustment, or is this just going to be an every year problem? And we said to the board, and I believe we backed it up, that this is a market adjustment, and if we get the market adjustment we need, we're going to be able to move in a good direction. So tonight I stand before you and I ask you to please help us keep a good thing going. Our academic performance is in a terrific place, which Jessica will talk to in a second. We're able to address school safety. We have good student supports in place, and we have good student opportunities in place. So with that said, I'll step aside for a minute and let Jessica talk to you about our own programs.
Good evening. As Dan mentioned, we should be really proud of our academic performance. Our performance trends indicate positive trends across all academic domains. Most notably, this project would lead the state and the entire region in our college and career readiness. 80.4% of students in grades 11 and 12 are deemed college and career ready and meet benchmarks through diverse measures such as standardized test scores and dual enrollment credits. Our science scores have shown improvement, with average scores rising to 68%, surpassing our pre-pandemic levels of performance. We've had consistent progress in literacy, maintaining scores there, and the huge celebration is that we are exceeding state level performance in our high needs group. So while the gap exists and future focus continues, we are exceeding state level standards in that area. So we often measure ourselves against districts similar in size, demographic, or geography. The performance indicators you see here are in math, science, and ELA, are determined by several key components aligned with educational standards, including our standardized test scores. Growth in an academic index score demonstrates greater proficiency or greater success for all students, while a decrease in score indicates a decline in performance. This is derived from the performance of all students within each of these districts. As you can see here, we continue to make domains in all areas in the right direction. Our mantra has been connected, accepted, and ready to learn, and this requires a multi-tiered system of support. What this means is that we are investing in enhancing our positive long-term outcomes for students. Some of the things that folks might not realize are that this includes the work of our specialists, for example, our math and reading specialists who are supporting students who require intervention or more intensive services, our mental health professionals, such as school counselors, school psychologists, and school social workers who support our entire school community and student body, our registered behavior technicians who have the skills and expertise to support all of our learners, but particularly our youngest learners who are learning the necessary social, emotional, behavior skills to be successful. Class size. The board has made a commitment in supporting the appropriate class sizes. Right now, we support a range from 18 to 22 students, and there's a great deal of research that supports this. But bottom line, our teachers and educators have been allowed to provide greater differentiation, student support, tailoring to students' diverse learning styles and needs, as well as see improvements in social and emotional success for students. To that end, we also rolled out our second step social and emotional learning program with great success this year, as well as the ability to look at the time, not only for our students, but also for our staffing needs. So the time that we allocated for student learning within school, as well as staff needs and professional development opportunities. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. And I probably should have done a more formal introduction for people that maybe only pay attention during budget season. Jessica Kuckel is the new assistant superintendent of schools. She started back in October, and I really appreciate all the work that she has done to hit the ground running. In terms of school safety, one of the areas that the board and the community supported us on last year was making sure that we had somebody who was working to keep our students and our staff safe in all of our schools. I'm happy to say that we now have a safety officer at each school. We have door attendants who monitor the comings and goings, who watch the cameras, scan all of our visitors at all of our schools. We use an app called Raptor, which is on the phones of all of our district employees, which alerts us to any sort of crisis in the building. It offers us two-way communication, so staff can communicate with district administration or staff can communicate directly with first responders. And it's a really helpful tool whenever anything goes wrong in our school buildings. Every now and again, there's some things that go sideways because it's still technology and still people, but it's always erred on the side of caution where people maybe overreact versus underreact. We've had threat assessment training, which is the CSTAG training for our specialized staff and our district administrators. We also had a presentation from our in-house trainers to the Board of Ed about 6 or 8 weeks ago. And I really appreciate the work that staff is doing to make sure that we're best prepared to assess the needs of students and the community and respond quickly in terms of a crisis. And we are partnering with our fire chief to enhance the level of medical training of our school safety responders. So a lot of good things are happening in this region. At Jack Jacker, WJ, and at the high school, we have quite a few activities and offerings that occur both after school and within the school day to enhance the opportunities for kids. As you likely know, Jack Jacker is a hot school. We have chorus, jazz band, we have Lego robotics and math Olympiad. At WJ, we have 6 interscholastic athletic teams. Again, we have a full slate of music offerings, robotics, we have our innovations, and we have our design and engineering classes. At the high school, we have 20 varsity athletic programs, 4 choral performance ensembles, 4 instrumental ensembles, robotics, drama, DECA, and the National Honor Society. We also have quite a few college and career readiness opportunities, including 18 AP courses, over 50 classes that are articulated for college credit with a variety of schools. We have Spanish, French, and sign language. We have the Youth Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative, and really an incredible and expansive set of CTE offerings that most comprehensive high schools no longer offer. Unfortunately, we also have a lot of mandates that we have to respond to in the budget. We have a state required K-3 English language arts program that we've been required to adopt. We have special education requirements, and as we've talked about in the past, when a student is identified as a special education student, we go to a PPT meeting. During that PPT meeting, we develop an IEP. Those are team-driven goals, and so no one person decides the outcomes, but it does become a legal document and a legal requirement, so it's not negotiable. We have to do what is right and best for that student, and sometimes that's expensive. We have evaluation software that we now need to comply with. Cyber insurance, which has become quite expensive. We have an every other year required security audit, and most recently, the state put forth 2 sets of required indoor air quality assessments that we're required to do. Again, one of which is going to be quite expensive. With that said, these are our budget drivers. First and foremost, salaries and benefits, then special education, maintenance of our facilities, transportation, and then athletics and clubs for kids. While there's 5 items up there, I would love to tell you that all 5 of these are evenly divided, but it goes in that order, and you can see the disparity on the next slide. So you can see how much of this is salaries and benefits, followed by special education, and quickly you can see that more than 75% of that pie goes to two categories. And that smallest sliver is the one that's funding streams. We have one new position in the budget, and it's really, there are two new positions in the budget, but they're not really new. We had 2 registered behavioral technicians that were funded through the ARPA grant that we recognize that we need to keep. One of the things that has changed since 2020, and really not for the better, is student behaviors have become increasingly more complex. And while I'm not going to stand here and try to tell you why, it's just a fact. And the RBTs are the staff that are best trained to help us address those behaviors. They have an expertise that most people do not have, and they're positions that we really need to keep in the budget. We kind of warned this last year in the budget process that these would be the things that we'd be looking to add. And really, 2 people at less than $80,000 for the work they do is a good bang for the buck. I also think it's important to take a moment and look at NCE. I know that our district, like all districts, likes to measure how we are up against like districts. So NCE is, in essence, what was once known as per pupil expenditure, and that is calculated by statutory language that really looks at how much we spend on per student in terms of education, but it has a formula that it follows in terms of what it does and does not include. And I'll just read it to you. NCE includes all current public elementary and secondary expenditures from all sources, excluding reimbursable regular education transportation, tuition revenue, capital expenditures for land, building, and equipment, and debt service. The information for determining NCE is provided by the educational financial system. So this is not something we're calculated, it's getting calculated for us, but it does look at how we compare. District reference groups are again determined by the state. Colchester is determined to be in District D. Now, when you factor geography and size, while these are considered like districts, they're not really apples for apples. So for example, Old Saybrook on the shoreline spending $25,000 plus a year per student. It is really not, that's a very small district, not the same as us. Similarly, Southington High School, which is below us, is one of the largest high schools in the state. So when you're able to look at what they're able to do on sheer size is why they're able to do it for a little bit less. But we often measure ourselves geographically and in terms of operational consistency with East Lyme, Waterford, East Hampton, Cromwell, and Rocky Hill. And when you look at Colchester compared to them, East Lyme is at $20,689. Cromwell just slightly below us at $18,337. And you can see that Colchester is right there in the bottom third. And that's not a bad place to be. I don't think we should aspire to be the district that spends the least amount on education, but I also don't think that it's necessary for us to be spending $25,000 per pupil either. I think we're in an appropriate place, and based upon what Jessica went over in terms of academic performance, we're getting a really good bang for our buck at $18,792. A little bit of history in terms of requests and allocations. Pretty consistently, we get a little bit less than we asked for. Last year, I think, is actually skewed. If you look at the bar graph, it looks like we got a lot less than we asked for, but there was some creative funding that occurred last year. So to be fair, that doesn't tell the whole story. In terms of the 10-year average, the board has proposed 2.6, the town's adopted 1.2. 5 years, the board has proposed 3.81, the town's adopted 1.65. Before moving on, I also think it's important to kind of remind everybody how this works. So tonight is the superintendent's proposed budget. The board will use tonight, another board workshop, and possibly other meetings to determine what it is that the board would like to adopt. Once the board takes the superintendent's budget, makes whatever changes they want to make, and adopts a budget, that becomes the board's adopted budget. And then it goes to the Board of Finance, and ultimately that Board of Finance determines which budget to send to the public. So that's referring to board proposed, not superintendent proposed. So where are we at? So tonight it is my recommendation to the board that we move forward a budget of $45,726,075 for a percentage increase of 3.97. But as I alluded to before, last year was a very unique year with some creative funding suggestions to the Board of Finance. And that ultimately impacts that 3.97. Because last year, the Board of Finance said that they would take out the Honeywell payment and they would take care of paying that off. And they suggested that we take out of-district tuition for a student who attended another school that was not eligible for excess cost reimbursement at about $600,000. So that was a subtraction of $812,000 from the budget of the Board of Education. Tonight, we do need to address the out-of-district tuition. Over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, our assistant superintendent and our leadership in special education have worked closely with the family and with others to try to negotiate new terms that would make us eligible for excess cost reimbursement. So tonight I am not asking the district to return $600,000 to the budget, but I am asking the district to return $429,000 to the budget because we still have an obligation to do what's right and best for one of our students. But because that figure was subtracted out, now we need to add back in. And I do want to call attention to the fact that I said to you earlier that we would work hard to bring forward quote unquote normalized increases each year to meet our contractual obligations. So while we're asking for a budget increase of 3.97% tonight, had we not done creative funding last year, we'd really be asking for a 3% increase tonight. And I just really wanted you to have that information in context, that we've worked really hard to have good opportunities for kids at the most responsible cost possible. And tonight we're really asking for a maintained status quo budget that addresses our contractual obligations, not just salary and benefits, but contractual obligations for transportation and other services, utilities, etc., which ultimately is a 3.97% increase. So thank you. I'd like to thank the leadership team of the district that is here tonight for all the work that they've done day in and day out and in the budget process. And you know, tonight certainly we'll take clarifying questions from the board, initial thoughts and feedback. And really, it's budget workshop, so wherever the board wants to go with this, and at the same time, you know, I know there's opportunity for public comment. Thank you.
And a motion to take a elementary test. Some of the little cupcakes we get out there. 10-minute recess. Sure.
There's second.
Second, I can second. This is Stephanie Alex.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
How long are you taking? 10 minutes, everybody.
10 minutes.
Thank you.
You are all set. Brilliant.
All
Wow.
right, we're gonna reconvene.
Well, we're ready to reconvene. Thank you. Does anybody on the board have a question for Dan?
So just as we restart, I would like everyone to know that right as I finish my presentation tonight, Art Johnson, who is our district technology specialist, made sure that all of the 24-25 budget documents are now live on the website. So whether you are here or at home, if you go to the colchesterct.org, which is the public schools website, and right on the front page, you'll see underneath Welcome to Colchester Public Schools, it says Budget 24-25. If you click on that, it brings you to the education budget page. Much like last year, we have really a slew of supporting information for people, going from the roles and responsibilities of everybody in the district, staffing comparisons over the last 10 years, DIRT per pupil expenditure and median income, area district per pupil expenditure and median income, per pupil expenditure adjusted for inflation. We have supporting documents, which includes enrollment history, enrollment projections, staffing history, sections and average class sizes, the January 2024 security assessment, estimated cost, education cost sharing, ECS formula phase out, technology reserve plan. And then when we get into the stuff that's maybe of most interest to people, the proposed budget for 24-25, which in essence is the line by line, programs funded by grants, high school athletics budget, tuition revenue, historical budget comparison, explanation of budget codes, and the budget level reports. So there's really a slew of information there to help people make informed decisions about the budget. But with that, take it away, Alex.
Does anybody on the board have a question or questions for Dan? Or comments?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes,
Go ahead.
that's a good question. The last item, the very last item on the documents, PPE adjusted for inflation. I think it's an incomplete document. You may need some filling in. It's an incomplete document. If you take a look at it. So I think there might be some need for filling in some numbers at the top, at the very top, which is kind of the latest information, you know, 23 and 2024.
Thank you. I don't know what happened there. I think the wrong one got loaded. We'll get it fixed.
You guys have a comment or question?
Thank you. Either for Dan or Jessica, if you would just help me to understand a little bit what the reduction of district cost for special education, how did we, I shouldn't say how we came to it, but what does it mean to us that not only was it reduced in some ways, but it's now eligible for some reimbursement? Is that a percentage, or can you just expand on that a little bit, please?
Sure. So previous, as we discussed sort of at length last year, we had a couple of situations where we had students who had placements that, I guess for lack of a better word, were not negotiated in the normal ways, and thus were not eligible for excess cost reimbursement. And then we also had situations where we were unable to get a student into an appropriate placement where there were seats available. When I first got here last year, we were able to address some of the first issues with the inappropriate placements. But in terms of being able to address the placements where we struggled to just find an appropriate placement in state that was eligible for excess cost, our new district leadership in special education and our assistant superintendent were able to work with the family and work with attorneys to find a placement that would appropriately meet the child's needs and would also be eligible for excess cost reimbursement. And Jessica can talk more about the way excess cost reimbursement works, but basically it's 4 times the per pupil expenditure and then a percentage of that as determined by the state, which this year I believe is about 70% of what is above 4 times excess cost. So, or 4 times above per pupil expenditure. So you're still not getting dollar for dollar, but we're getting more money back than we would in a year ago.
Okay, thank you very much. That calculation or the math part is what I was trying to understand better, so I appreciate it.
Does anybody else on the board have a comment or question?
I have a comment, not really a question yet. But as I'm going through it, as everybody knows, this is also the first time the board sees the budget. We're going in line to go through it now. When we come back March 9th, we'll have more questions and things for Dan and Jessica and Rachel. But, and just looking at it now, I just want to thank the 3 of you for being so detailed and having so much information, even down to the year-by-year comparison budgets of everything. I think you probably answered questions that we may have had just by your detailed information. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that as well.
Very detailed.
Very detailed, which is probably why we don't have a whole lot of questions. On top of the fact that we are absorbing it for the very first time today, as well as you are, but the amount of work that went into this and the detail is very much appreciated, so thank you.
Even the history that you went through. Fantastic.
Anyone else? Before I turn it over to public comment.
I know.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a rather specific question, so you might not be able to answer it in this moment, but I'm looking at the tuition revenue line, and it's as of last week, right? So it's like 267,000 and change as of last week. Can you all speak to, or Rachel speak to the what's expected as far as tuition at the end of the year? And then it's not super clear to me what's expected or what we're budgeting for as far as tuition for next year.
So the tuition doesn't come to us, so that's just a number, all that money goes to the town, so you won't see it in our budget.
Okay, so it's not in our budget, but then we have it as a separate document.
Correct, those are the tuition that we receive for out-of-district students, so we have billed for the first and second quarter, we have 2 more quarters, so you're halfway through.
Got it. Thank you.
And Stephanie, just for a little bit more context on the tuition itself, by and large, there's a handful of exceptions. Most of that tuition is other towns sending students to Bacon Academy. We have some staff and others that will send students to the other 3 schools, but a lot of that has been really Norwich students going to Bacon Academy. We have worked hard to negotiate agreements with Franklin and Basra and hoping to gain Salem as districts that have the opportunity to send kids to Bacon Academy. At the same time, Norwich received a lot of pressure from NFA to start sending more students to school locally. So Norwich is actually phasing Bacon Academy out. So that tuition revenue is really a moving target. And obviously we also have discussions about a magnet school, which could in turn, bring more tuition back into the country.
Sure. Thanks for clarifying, Jim.
Right. Thank you, Dan and Jessica. And I know I'll have questions for you all next time, but I just need to look at the information first. All right, so that brings us to public comment. The Board of Ed welcomes public comment. Please note that public comment is to be directed to all of us, not to any individual member of the administration or Board of Ed. Also, please note that we will not respond to public comment. We will discuss it and appropriately answer. All right. Each person has 3 minutes for public comment. So I will now turn it over to public comment. If anybody would like to come up and speak, please do so.
Hi. Hello, Matt Parsons, 218 Taylor Road. I just wanted to come up here again and just remind the board of the comprehensive capital improvement plan that was proposed that Judy O'Mara and I co-chaired to also consider into this budget. There were many projects and improvements that this district need to just catch up to other districts' improvements that have happened over the past 10 years of our budget. And I just want the board to just review that in detail, really noting those prioritized projects, because if we do not start being proactive with our budgeting, then we are going to end up being reactive and paying more over time in a one-year chunk. So please review that capital plan again and plan for the future. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I'm Skip Starks, Bacon Academy boys and varsity soccer coach, but resident, parent, taxpayer, and I was on the facilities committee with several of the folks in this audience, and several that I see in front of me. I just want to make sure, reiterate what Matt said about the capital improvement plan, that does strike a nerve and go forward. It's not just, I know the soccer guy and it's about the church field and everybody feels we're coming from that angle. And that's certainly part of the plan. But as some of the slides showed earlier about how the academic is increasing and some of our scores are getting higher, if we're looking for excellence in academics, we should be looking for excellence in our extracurricular activities as well. Not just soccer. Talk about soccer and the playing fields and all that all day long if you want, but I know you want to go look at them to see that. So I want to make sure we're on the same page in that regard from a talent pride standpoint. Making this high school extracurricular, whether it's sports, music, art, whatever it may be, should be a culmination of preschool, middle school. They should be highlighting that, not embarrassed by overall. That's what I'll say about that, because I think right now we're just trying to keep up, and we need to keep up. It's no longer a want, it's now a need. We need to make these changes. So I hope you take that seriously. I said it before, one of the other meetings, I'll say it again, because right now the facilities, the ones we propose, certainly the fields and some of the other things inside, construction of the buildings are embarrassing and dangerous at best. We need to take action. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Superintendent alluded to how we spent year, so I feel like we never finished this last year, but it's good to be back. So as we begin the budget process, I think it's important to remember that the people spoke loudly and clearly about the budget during last year's budget process and at the ballot box in November. We want our schools I'm very concerned about the state of the schools. I think there's been years of devastating cuts in real dollars that have led to this position, both in facilities and decreased per pupil expenditure. I think first we need to address the building maintenance in our flag fields. I really appreciate the presentation that was done last week. There's clearly been a lot of work that's been done on that, but we need to push that across the goal line. We can no longer kick that can down the road. We've done that before. We experienced that in the middle school, but it's a long time to fix it. Let's not do the same thing again. Let's learn from previous mistakes. Second, we need to learn or work to decrease barriers for participation in the broad activities that our schools offer. As a former teacher from Mansfield Middle School, I know that we had afternoon buses to support children actually doing after-school activities like sports and clubs. Even more importantly, we need to abolish pay-to-play for both sports and clubs. It's a barrier for kids. We need to figure out how to fund that. It's a public good to have kids involved in school and school activities from 3 to 6 p.m. or whenever their parents get home. Like, literal research has been done on this, right? Third, we need to reinstate our gifted and talented program. Gifted and talented students are students with special needs. Actually, when I took my special education class, that's what they talked about, gifted and talented. The difference is, they're the only students with special needs who are not protected under federal law, hence this program is often cut. Finally, I want to ensure that we can recruit and retain the best talent to teach and guide our children and serve our town. We need to do more to make our salary and compensation competitive compared to local districts and villages. Our teachers, staff, and town employees deserve and need a raise to stay competitive with area districts and area villages. We voted you guys in as a group to get this across the goal line. I'm looking forward to helping you. I would help you at the Board of Finance too. There's a whole group of parents there. Let's do this.
Alex, do we have any online questions? Well, there would be a big thing.
Anyone else for public comment? So I'd like to adjourn the
Motion
meeting.
to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Abstentions?
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Want to take it
Opposed?
longer?
All right, we are adjourned at 6:53.
Next meeting Saturday, March 9th, same place, 9 o'clock.
9 a.m.